Do you ever notice how people make fun of others for talking to AI or act like it's weird or dangerous or some sign that society is falling apart? But the more I think about it, the more I realize that it says something about us, about the state of the human connection and human loneliness today. And maybe the real question is maybe the real question isn't why are people talking to AI, but why don't we feel like we can talk to each other anymore? And I'm not pretending I'm above this or anything. Of course, I've had moments where I tried opening up to someone about something I was actually thinking, and you could just tell instantly that they're not really listening, or or they were just waiting for their turn to talk, or they were just uncomfortable with the honesty altogether. And I think that is the crux of the problem that we're facing today. And sometimes, I even time my own thoughts into ChatGPT just to see them clearly, just to see, your own ideas take form. Because no one in my immediate life, at least, is interested in the same types of things I'm interested in. Not to say that they don't think deeply or, they don't have interesting interests. That's just how it is. Like everyone's different, everyone has their own interests. But I don't think this is necessarily a ChatGPT psychosis taking place. I think it's a symptom of a bigger problem. See, now Dostoevsky saw this problem coming. And I keep thinking back to Notes from Underground, one of his best works, and certainly his most philosophical work. And it reminded me of this scene where the underground man goes to dinner with his old schoolmates. And the whole time he's suffocating under the fake politeness, the shallow laughter, the performance of having a normal conversation, and he just can't stand it. He's surrounded by people, but he feels utterly alone in this gathering. And honestly, who hasn't felt that before, But everyone's performing, everyone's guarded, everyone's scared of saying the wrong thing. So when he finally speaks his truth, he looks insane, and then he retreats back into isolation, into his own thoughts, into himself, into his own inner world, and into his underground. And Dostoevsky tried to warn us that when the real conversation dies, people retreat into the shadows. And maybe AI is just the new shadow. Maybe it's technology altogether, a place where people can finally speak without feeling judged or feeling like their honesty isn't going to be met with the same vulnerability that they've chosen to display. And I'll just read one little quote from Notes from Underground that I think exemplifies this point. Even then, I was struck by the pettiness of their thoughts, the stupidity of their pursuits, their games, their conversations. They had no understanding of such essential things. They took no interest in such striking, impressive subjects that I could not help considering them inferior to myself. The most obvious, striking reality they accepted with fantastic stupidity, and even at the time were accustomed to respect success. Everything that was just, but oppressed and looked down upon, they laughed at heartlessly and shamelessly. And I just feel that this passage directly relates to how many modern people feel today in their conversations, where you don't want to just wear a mask when talking to somebody. You want to be vulnerable because that's just the human experience. People are tired of wearing these masks, especially in a time where you have to put on so many different masks, whether it's for your family, for your friends, for social media, for the internet, whatever it may be. So, and even in relationships. So for this next part, I'll be speaking about Mishkin's The Idiot, and I'll dive into Ippolit's Confession. Now, specifically in Ippolit's Confession, he brings up quite a few points, quite a few serious topics and points that I'd like to point out, just to give this a little more weight. And it starts here. It says, "What need is there of my humility? Can I be simply devout Can't I simply be devoured without being expected to praise what devours me? And then later he goes on to say, in spite of all my desire to do it, I could never conceive of there being no future life, no providence. This is him speaking of, first of all, life, and why should I go through life having to feel humble when life is the thing that is killing me, literally. And then why should I have to believe in this heaven or this providence when I don't even know if it exists, and I don't even know if there is going to be a future life. And then he goes on to say, if I had had the power not to be born, I would certainly not have accepted existence upon conditions that are such a mockery. And now that could be referring to either just life itself and his illness and his situation, or it could also be ascribed to the people he's around and the mockery taking place within his own circles, within society. And I think that would translate well to the modern age and how we view our interactions in daily lives. Then he says, perhaps I'd like to take the last possibility of action in my life before I die. After he's finished speaking, some other characters chime in, and because Ippolit wants to know what they think, of course, and he wants to know if he's been a burden. And one of the characters, Ferdishchenko, he replies, what phenomenal feebleness. And then Ganya says, he's simply a fool. And then he asked Evgeny Pavlovich, did I distress you or not? Tell me. And Evgeny says, it was rather drawn out. Still, it was, and then cuts off, and then he says, and then Ippolit says, speak out. Do not tell lies for once in your life. Ippolit insisted, trembling. Oh, it's absolutely nothing to me, Evgeny says. So Ippolit pretty much laid his whole life out there, his entire thought process, his feelings, what he was genuinely feeling, whether people viewed it as self-contempt or not. I mean, it was his genuine, honest feeling. And then you see people just completely discard it as if it's nothing. And people even go as far as to say he was just making a spectacle of himself on purpose for attention. And I'm sure there's many instances where people have experienced this in their lives, where you try to put your feelings out there, or you try to just say what's on your mind, and people end up looking at you like you're attention seeking, or you're looking for somebody to validate your feelings, when Ippolit was just trying to explain how he felt, because these were the only people he knew, and he just wanted to get his point across. So I think just all of that goes to show that the truth doesn't feel safe anymore. Honesty doesn't feel safe anymore in the modern age. Everyone puts on masks. Everyone's hiding who they are for some reason. It's just the culture of our society, and it's causing this loneliness epidemic that we keep hearing about in our generation. Maybe just culturally, this loneliness epidemic. And people like to say that the internet is playing a large part in that, and it may be, but I don't think it's the reason. And I think people are trying to say internet is the reason, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think we have to shift the blame away from technology onto ourselves, right? Here's the thing. I'm not saying AI is a replacement for human relationships by any means. I think that'd be ridiculous. What I am saying is this. AI isn't replacing human connection, but it's revealing how fragile it already is or was. People aren't pouring their hearts out to machines because they're weak or, emotionally unsatiated. They do it because the world around them has become too loud, too judgmental, too performative for real conversation. And so AI becomes a mirror in that sort of way. It's a confessional. It's like, if you ever read Augustine's Confessions, it's like Augustine writing to God in some way. I'm not saying that AI is God or anything, but it's the same type of action, except this mirror ends up talking back to you. And but this whole thing should just make us pause and reflect, not necessarily go into a nationwide panic over this thing. So I guess a real question that I was left wondering was, if a machine listens better than the people around us, who should we really be worried about? Or what should our main worry in society be? I mean, because the tragedy isn't that we talk to AI, the tragedy is that we don't talk to each other. And if that's true, then that means we are all the underground man now. And we're searching for something real in a world made of glass and mass and everything in between. So I just wanted to put this out there to just bring awareness to what I think is really going on with this loneliness epidemic, with this struggle for authenticity in the modern world, and how people, and the reason why people are retreating into solitude for, you know, for their own pursuits, whether that be or retreating to AI for whatever reason that may be, whether it's to complete their emotional stability, or to explore their own ideas and the ideas that they feel like are important that they can't express to others. But I think this will help us explain what's going on in the world as far as loneliness goes. And yeah, I think we should just think on that for a while.